Hello and welcome to the Satluj Podcast. Now, since partition, India has told itself a pretty reassuring story. A secular constitution, a settled union, a state generous enough to reward merit regardless of religion. Well, today we're going to test that story from three different angles. We'll start with Dr. Manmohan Singh, India's first and only Sikh Prime Minister. The economist credited with saving the country from bankruptcy in 1991. But who nonetheless spent his final years under a corruption case, only formally closed by the Supreme Court literally just a few days ago, and whose funeral arrangements still divide opinion within the Sikh community. And from there we'll turn to the British historian Perry Anderson, whose essays, collected as the Indian Ideology, argue that India's founding myths of secularism and consensus disguise a settlement built on centralised power, religious symbolism and caste hierarchy. And then we'll discuss my guest's own answer to that critique, a detailed blueprint for a genuinely federal United States of India. And then finally, we'll ask what all of these three elements mean for the politics of Khalistan. So to guide us through it, I'm joined today, as ever, by Dr. Gurinder Singh Goyal. Dr. Goyal, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us once again today.
Good morning, Angus. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. To start with, recent news was very disturbing about Sardar Manmohan Singh. He was India's Prime Minister for 10 years. He used the restraint in exercising his power. They thought he was weak. He had respect for knowledge, he was honest, he had humility, and he had service. He transforms India's economy from choked economy of Nehru's to liberal economy. And he did a good job and was respected all over the world. But this BJP government, first they started agitation against corruption and blame him for the whole culture of India. And they were successful in dislodging the Congress. They didn't stop there. When he passed away, they denied him funeral at Rajghat, which is the normal place for prime ministers and president when they are cremated. But he was sent to a public ground. But it did not diminish his. It did not diminish him. Didn't diminish respect for him. But they was not satisfied. Then they started a case against him in the distribution of coal corruption. So 2015, the agencies which was investigating, they concluded that he had done nothing wrong. But the case was never closed and it stayed somewhere in the Supreme Court. Now recently, they have said that he didn't do anything wrong. 19 months after his death, so they said he didn't do anything wrong. So the question is, why was a former prime minister forced to live under shadow of unproven accusations for 11 years, only to be cleared 19 months after his death? So what do you think? I think the answer is they hate the Sikhs. They hated him, even though he was a gentleman, he was a good economist and did good for the country. So he was the architect of India's modern economy, but BJP could not tolerate him because he was a Sikh. So this is my conclusion. If you are a Sikh, even if you're doing good things in India, you're not the one they like. So I think this is a moral of the story that India does not like Sikhs, even if you are successful doing good things for the whole country. So I think all of the other people who think they have done service to India, they should worry about themselves. What respect this majoritarian government has for them. So that's my conclusion, that India does not respect, the present government does not respect any Sikh.
So yes, Dr. Goyal, I think really it follows a very common theme, and I think Dr. Manmohan Singh really, obviously in the position that he was in, formed a very easy target for the Indian deep state, let's call it, to essentially discriminate, albeit subtly, but it was still very overtly, particularly when it came to his funeral. And then, as we said, as you mentioned, it is deeply tragic that his clearance by the Supreme Court literally only came a few days ago. But of course, after his death, so this poor man who had delivered so much of his own self to his nation went to his grave believing that that state he had served for so long and so well essentially saw him as a criminal, which of course was not the case.
Yeah. So this is the truth. It's hard to swallow, but this is the truth.
Indeed. So, and then the other gentleman, of course, that I mentioned in the introduction is this gentleman Perry Anderson, of course, this British intellectual, I suppose, for want of a better description. He obviously wrote some very seminal works about India itself. Would you like to talk about, tell us about Perry Anderson and his significance in the story of India?
Yeah, recently I came across the writings of Perry Anderson. So he's written a book about India's ideology. So can we start with the slide?
Indeed.
Next one. So Perry Anderson was born in 1938 in Britain, and he was of leftist views. He taught history and sociology at UCLA, this University of California, Los Angeles. He wrote 3 articles in 2012, which was later published in the book form, those essays called The Indian Ideology by 3 essay collectors. The first one was July 5th, 2012, Gandhi Center Stage. So he's writing about Gandhi, then he's writing about the partition, then Nehru and after. So, there used to be show in TV here. I have not seen lately. I don't know if it's still there. It's called Mythbusters. So I think we can call Perry Anderson a mythbuster. So that's what he's writing. So let's go to next. So the myth is India has an inclusive Congress, a non-violent Gandhi, a secular Nehru, and consensual constitution. So he's writing to explain that. Let's go next. So Perry Anderson's indictment shattered the triumphalist facade. Core argument, India was not founded through a complete democratic transformation of colonial society. The reality of settlement, it was an accommodation among nationalism, religion, caste, hierarchy, centralized state power, and inherited colonial institution. National scholarship operates as a political construction, the Indian ideology disguising majoritarian and territorial coercion. Basically, he's saying it's not all inclusive Congress or the government. Gandhi, the non-violent, basically was hiding Hindutva. And Nehru established a parliamentary democracy. So these are all broken myths. Consensual constitution. Constitution is not working for everybody. So this is what he's explaining. Let's go to next. So we have a conventional narrative. We have Anderson's indictment. And then we have contemporary reality, some of it we have been talking for several weeks. Conventional narrative, unified nationalism. Anderson says it's a contested representation. People are contesting continuously. And then we have, what is the truth today? It's active ideological contestation in the okay? The conventional narrative is in India, secular foundation. But Anderson says it's religious mass politics, which is obvious now. The rise of Hindu majoritarian is the truth, okay? The conventional narrative, cooperative federalism, that's what they're trying to portray for last so many years. But Anderson says coercive centralization, but continues as a federal friction. It continues as a federal government, but not without a friction. So conventional narrative is democratic origin, but Anderson says elite constitutional engineering. We explained that the people who created this constitutional government, they were never chosen by people. So it was the elite people who made the constitution. They were not elected publicly to make a constitution. So what has a result? Accumulated democratic legitimacy. So let's go to the next. Indian nationalism was never a single uncontested political movement. So there is no such as Indian national. There is a Sikh organization, freed permanent minority status in a divided Punjab. We had talked about this several times. Additional faction, there were non-Brahmical movements, regional parties, communists, princely states who resisted an all-India leadership. Muslim League, Muhammad Ali Jinnah argued Muslim constitute a separate political nation. You know, they blame Mr. Jinnah for Pakistan. Jinnah came up the defense of the Muslims because they did not want to be inclusive. They did not want Muslim representation separate from Congress. They want everybody to be one. And that's, he was defensive and he was successful. So I think he had a vision. Then we had the depressed classes where Ambedkar rejected assumption that upper caste Congress leader automatically represented oppressed caste. You know, in the roundtable conference, Gandhi goes that he is representing India. Ambedkar was there. He said, "You don't represent us." But in the end, he connived and he cheated him too. So let's go next. The decline of Congress proves national identity is actively fought over, not absent. Congress legacy, formally secular, territorially inclusive, and institutionally pluralist. So they were a little better than current one. What is now? Civilizational shift. Bharatiya Janata Party and the Sangh Parivar, the all group of those little organizations are called Sangh Parivar, redefined Indian nationalhood through Hindu historical memory, culture unity, and the political consolidation of Hindu majority. They are taking advantage of 80 some close to 80% majoritarian Hindus, even though they are not one group, but that's how they are trying to exploit. Next. So Gandhi. So Anderson shows Gandhi injected intensely religious moral vocabulary into mass politics. Yes, Gandhi started a mass movement, but his mass movement was around Hindutva. Look what he did. He did Ram Rajya, so that's a Hindu concept. He did fasting, that's a Hindu concept. Sacrifice, that's a Hindu concept. Religious duty, Hindutva concept. Spiritual purification, that he tried several times to convince people, and preaching. So all Gandhi's life was around Hindutva and putting his Hindu ideology into the mass movement. Even when used inclusively, this symbolic framework could not be equally accessible to Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, or atheists, fundamentally weakening the possibility of a secular political culture. You know, Mr. Jinnah used to say this Gandhi is talking about country and including everybody, but at the same time, he's talking Ram Rajya, so he's talking with a forked tongue. So Anderson is bringing out the same truth about the Gandhi, which remains hidden. And the current Hindu government, they don't like Gandhi. Their party is the one who killed him. But Gandhi sells outside. So they're very busy installing his statues, spending millions of dollars, not believing what they're doing. Okay? So religious symbolism remained the ultimate currency of political legitimacy. So this is what is happening in India. The Indian secular reality, unlike the classical French separation, model, the Indian state regulates religious institutions, recognizes community-specific personal laws, and subsidizes religious activities. So he's bringing out that in France, these two things are separate. Government does not control religion, but in India, religion is controlled by the government, and that leads to corruption. Even in the recent Hindu temple case we talked last time, modern majoritarianism, temples, pilgrims, historical grievances are central to electoral policy. Key proof point: Ayodhya temple consensus, consecration of Ram temple operated not merely as a religious event but as a major statement about national identity and historical restoration. So what he's saying, so they demolish the masjid, build a Ram temple. What are they trying to say? They're trying to tell the Indian Muslims, you don't matter anymore. Your institution don't matter anymore. As far as Indian government is concerned, they consider them to be outsiders. Either they live under their rule or they convert. So religious spectrum shared vocabulary does not equal shared intent. Okay. Now we have dimensions and the pluralistic religiosity. We're talking about Gandhi and what is happening today. Dimension 1, core purpose, focus on interfaith coexistence, moral resistance. That's what Gandhi was trying to portray or he's known for. But what is happening? The focus now is on defining the political majority. Dimension 2, minority status. Prioritize the active protection of minorities. That's what Gandhi used to say, at least is the narrative. But now, this government sets a condition under which minorities must demonstrate national loyalty. So they're demanding loyalty, but they don't respect them. Dimension 3, social reform, utilizes religious language to criticize untouchability. That's what he used to say, but he does not necessarily believe in it. But now they're utilizing it for political consolidation. So Anderson correctly notes Gandhi did not construct a Western secular sphere. So I think we can agree with him. Next. A relentless obsession with centralized powers cemented partition. In 1946 and before, the Congress and all, they were preoccupied that we need one India and Hindu majority, Congress ruling. That was not tolerated by Muslim majority, and Muslim majority, but they were minority in India, and that led to partition. So partition was not inevitable, according to Anderson. Metaphysical event, it was the direct result of a political choice to prioritize a powerful central command over a negotiated loser confederation. So, in India, it's a very common narrative to blame Mr. Jinnah for partition, but look what Anderson is saying. Is the choice the majority community made, and they were intolerant, not able to negotiate any confederation. So his conclusion is also the Congress majoritarian Hinduism is also responsible for the partition. Next. Territorial unity cannot rest solely upon centralized command. Okay. Look what's happening in Kashmir, Punjab, Northeast, Tamil Nadu. Each of these zones demonstrate diverse linguistic, religious, and national identities, require recognition, and centralization actively creates resistance, and removing the Muslim League did not eliminate the need for negotiated federalism. So even though Muslim League had the country for the Muslims, but the problem still exists for the other minority. That's what the current problem is. And to subdue that, this Hinduism majority is ruthless. Look what they have done in Kashmir, what they're doing in Punjab. They brought hundreds and thousands of migrant workers. They're registering them as voters and deleting the original Punjabis from the vote. So if they win, it won't be surprise. So this is the creation they are using. Next. The federal imbalance. Look, defense, foreign affairs, emergency powers, fiscal dominance, all India service, altering state boundaries. This is all with the federal government. This is not a federal service. The states basically are in this fulcrum show lifted up because the states don't have a way to equalize that. So, next. The Supreme Court as the ultimate federal shield. Opposition govern states, union appointed governors repeatedly delay ascending to the legislation, obstruct legislation sessions, and reserve state bills for presidential consideration. So you can say the states have appointed governor from the center who works for the center, not for the state government. So this is a complete centralization, and basically colonial rule continued under a different scenario, but it's basically colonial rule continued. Modern validation. Supreme Court decision in 2025 regarding Tamil Nadu established the same thing. So let's go to next. Born from elite origin, not universal consensus. Anderson's factual strike. Indian constitution did not rise from a public referendum. So the Indian constitution was not made by public representative. It was made by politicians, self-styled leaders. Assembly, which made this constitution, was not elected through universal adult suffrage. So they were not chosen by people who designed the constitution. Members were selected indirectly through a provincial legislature elected under a highly restricted colonial franchise. So under colonial franchise, they chose those people and created another colonial government. Following partition, the assembly became even less socially and politically representative of the population that remained within India's borders. So it's even more dysfunctional for the minorities after 47 than it was before. So this is his conclusion. Next. Input 1947, the elite constitution engineering, then it accelerates successful constitution amendment, successive constitution amendment, expensive judicial interpretation, reorganization of states along linguist lines. The output, present day marginalized communities actively entering political life and claiming ownership of the constitution settlement. So the marginal peoples are still marginalized because to start with, it was not a representative of the people who made this constitution. So it's clear his interpretation is focusing on constitution. Next. Enduring value of the Indian ideology. Anderson brilliantly exposes the deep contradiction within the Indian constitution order. He proves that the republic was built on the accommodation of centralized power, caste hierarchy, and religious identity. So it was not true democracy. It did all those to adopt and create a central government. Next. Living architecture of post-colonial settlement. So this structure still remains the same and dysfunctional. Okay. Next, I think I'm going to read one by one. This is the Indian national narrative on our left and Anderson's reinterpretation. So this is conclusion of his three essays in this slide. Indian narrative. India possessed an ancient national unity. According to Anderson, modern political unity was substantially created under British rule. So just like other intellectuals, he's saying there was no single country as India. It was created by British. Then Gandhi's non-violence defeated British rule. That's the narrative now. He says Gandhi built a mass party, but war and imperial decline proved decisive. The Britain has to leave because of war and the imperial decline, economic hardship made them leave, not Gandhi's non-violence movement. Jinnah alone caused partition. This is what India says. But what did Anderson say? Congress, centralism, and rejected power sharing also contributed. He said, blame Congress party also for the partition. Then India is naturally secular. This is the Indian narrative. But according to Anderson, nationalism was deeply infused with the Hindu religious symbolism. You know, he showed those Gandhi's 5, 6 things, how behind the scene he keep insinuating Hindu religious symbolism. Constitution broke with colonialism. That's what they try to say. But Anderson says it retained many colonial institutions and coercive powers. So it's basically, yes, instead of a king's government, now you have a prime minister, the government, but it's still colonial in character, and they kept most of it. The caste contradicts democracy, that's Indian says. But he says caste also stabilize democracy by dividing disadvantaged groups. He said the caste is being used to destabilize the minorities by dividing them. That's what they're doing. That's what Modi is doing in Punjab now. He's going to some so-called Dalit Babaji and trying to divide the people so they can destabilize the Punjab government or take control. So look, Anderson was predicting 2012 what Modi is doing now. National unity reflects popular consent. That's what Indians say. But in Kashmir and the North, unity was often maintained through force. Yes, it looked like India united, but it is united with the use of bayonet and the bullet. The Kashmir is occupied by more than 500,000 armed forces, and North is basically mostly always kept under control with the use of army. So, next. So, what is the solution to this? Okay, we felt the diagnosis of we read diagnosis of Perry Anderson, what the problem is. Well, what is the solution? You know, nobody is coming up with a good solution. So I have put together my solution, not on behalf of Sikhs only. I think this is my way of sending message to the Cockroach Janata Party, Indian opposition. What they're talking is symptom. They are not talking of solution. I think solution lies in following a good example. Okay, the current constitution does not help anybody in India. You know, on September 2nd, 1953, Dr. Ambedkar, in his speech in Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house in India, he said, this constitution does not help anybody and I will be the first one to burn it. He did not burn it, but I think the time has come for Indians, if they want peace and prosperity, to burn this constitution, change it, and go to a new process. New process, what I'm proposing is basically towards the United States of India. Follow the government system of American government, United States government, United States of America. This is the best example today, not perfect one, the best example in 250 years of success. I think let's discuss the good things, what we are saying. Okay, next. prudential reality of India operates as a union-dominant federalism. Constitution promised the article of India is defined as a union of states. That's how it started. But where it is, there's a structure reality, unilateral authority of parliament to alter state boundaries. So it is not union of the states. The parliament can change the state boundaries. Look what they have done in Jammu and Kashmir, what they have done in Punjab. Union assignment of residual powers. Union government has all the power. Central appointment of state governors. So that's not a federalism. Expensive use of Article 356, I think. Now, looking at the two sides of this slide, you can obviously see that it is not a union of the states. It's a centrally controlled government. It needs to be decentralized. Next. So, in the beginning, according to the cabinet mission plan, where the constitutional process started, there said 10 years reconsideration of the principle. So that means constitution was supposed to be revised in 10 years. Limited union authority, foreign affairs, defense, and communication. This was supposedly was the role of central government, but that did not happen. In 10 years, they didn't revise and they kept going because they had the power. All those reservation, etc., was originally given for 10 years. So there was a concept, there was safety valve. If you have a pressure cooker, they have safety valve, and the pressure can leak through that. That was intent of 10 years review, but they didn't do it. Now the pressure cooker is under pressure, and this 1950 constitution in a pressure cooker is going to explode, and it's going to explode badly. So I think there is an opportunity for people responsible there to make sure before it explodes that they can change into better system. That's my suggestion. That's the United States of India following the model of United States of America. Okay. I'm not sure this will happen, but I am discussing it anyway for mental exercise, and hopefully somebody is listening. Okay. Excessive centralization creates a compounding systematic risk of body politics. For example, 1976 42nd Amendment, they took over the education system, which now is one of the reasons this Cockroach Janata Party came into existence and brought out the problem. Okay. Regional alienation, grievances, escalate, and political confrontation. Disconnected planning inefficiency, distant authorities mismanage local realities in agriculture, health, and land use. It's obvious. Look like in the Punjab, they want to control education, they control the water distribution system, they want to control agriculture, they control health. The Vice Chancellor of Punjab, Baba Farid Medical University, was appointed by Punjab government, but governor refused. They brought the Vice Chancellor out of the state. So there are many, many examples. Then blame shifting, weak accountability. Because there's no accountability, they keep shifting blame. So one minister will resign, another crook will come in, but the system does not change. So to change the system, I think they have to go to a new constitution based on American system, constitution by the people, for the people, of the people. So let's have a structural diagnosis of constitution paradigms. Union of states, we're talking India and the United States of India, what I'm proposing, fundamental principle. Delegated state powers, the Union of States, currently delegated state power, center controlled. But in the true United States of India, reserve powers principle, states will have their own power. Legislative power, union dominant parliament, that's what they don't know. But in the true democracy, bicameralism, House and Senate, there were two houses, and we'll talk how they work. executive branch, centrally appointed governors. But in the true sense, if they adopt the American system, governor will be elected and will have a consultation with the federal government. State viability, fiscal dependence on union transfer. So now they collect money from the state, then redistribute. I think we talked before. Some states contribute 1 rupee, get 7 cents. Some contribute 1 rupee, they get 7.5 rupees. So there's a big mismatch. But in the true federal system, general fiscal federalism will come into practice. Okay. Let's go next. Public authority must be exercised at the lowest effective level. That's what they have in the US. Subsidy category. There's a foreign affairs, national defense, that's a federal. State level, health delivery, state laws, education. Local level, the transit system, land use, cultures. So in where I live, local government has a lot of authority, even separate from the states. But in India, this is not true. You know, reading one time I may have mentioned before, in China, they centralize political system, but economic system is decentralized. 85% of the money is spent in a decentralized way. That's why they are progressing. Some sort of decentralization even may not complete. Next. So in this US model, you have a House of the People. They will be based, number of the representatives from each state depends upon the population, and their term is only 2 years, so they stay accountable. Okay, if they're not doing good, 2 years they go. And even to elect the congressman, if the two candidates, each party elect them democratically. They can't just say, I am the candidate. Okay, so this is a population-based assembly or the Congress. The Senate is the upper house. Like India has Rajya Sabha, you have a House of Lords in England. So senators serve as a staggered 6-year term. This body acts as a barrier against partisan central. So each state sends 2 senators. So small or large states only can send 2 senators. They have a power. They confirm senior federal appointments, federal judges, and international treaties. So all international treaties are confirmed by senator. All president's appointees for the executive are approved by the Senate. So this is a good system. I think if India can adopt, maybe they can save the union. Okay. Next. Executive branch is redefined through independent election and rigid boundaries. Okay. Pathway 1, granted power, national defense and management. The center has given powers and national defense, foreign affairs. They have independent federal executive, but federal executive is with the consent and approval of Senate, not just one person appointing. Okay. What the federal government don't have, they cannot dissolve Congress. President cannot say, you go home, you're not functioning. Okay? They can't dissolve the Congress, mean both houses. When we use the word Congress, means both houses. The lower house is called House of Representatives, the upper Senate. Dismissing elected state government and assemblies. Central government cannot dismiss any governor of the state assemblies. There's some revoked pathways if there's a disaster or emergency, but it is not used daily, and I have not seen in 50 years being used. Parliamentary fusion of powers is replaced by a president elected to a 4-year term, maximum of 2 terms. So it's a good system if Indians can adopt it. Okay. Next. American system had dual judiciary. So the state laws are controlled under state Supreme Court, and then there we have a federal Supreme Court. So they both have a jurisdiction, Finally, on some issues of interstate things that federal Supreme Court may have some authority, but the two judicial systems, the state laws are adjudicated by state Supreme Courts, and then we have a Supreme Court, US Supreme Court. So the two parallel systems, not controlled by one president, Congress, or Senate. Okay, they are very independent. Institutional architecture enforces equilibrium through intersecting powers. Yeah, bicameral Congress, two houses, independent executive, approved by the Senate, dual judiciary. So there are multiple layers of protection or independent system. Next. The reserve power principle constitutes the cornerstone of the United States of India. All remaining authority resides with the states of the people. The central government only has what is given to them. This is a federalist principle. The federal government possesses only those powers explicitly delegated to it. There are no expandable central residue powers. Central government cannot suspend governors or state assemblies or control their laws. So this is what I think need. That's a lot of the state governments may be happy to have. Okay. Judicial authority is strictly delineated by policy field. Security and diplomacy, federals, and states have disaster response unit, state level, policing, fire services. You know, if the state has a disaster, the president doesn't send the military or force. The governor has to invite the help from the central government. This is how decentralized system is. Economy, currency, interstate commerce with the federal government, state sales, income tax, regional development, licensing. State controls its own resources also. Social services, civil rights standards, national, education, healthcare delivery, housing, land use, culture under the state. Infrastructure, interstate highway, aviation, state. Local transit, state roads, water resources, irrigation, all with the state government. Okay, let's go next. So this slide, I think if we look at the yellow part, we can conclude, even though we have federalist system, but constitutionally protected independent states revenue basis. The states are protected in territory, in assembly, governor, and their revenue. The federal government cannot raid on the state funds or chain them. So which is a tremendous help, and this is I would say 180-degree different from the current Indian system. Next. Institution safeguards prevent the erosion of a new federal settlement. The executive safeguard, their legal safeguards. Governors cannot be fired or elected by the central government or appointed. Assemblies are not controlled. That the presidential rule strictly limited to a general breakdown. So they can't call presidential rule in any state if they adopt this system. Okay. Next. Regional autonomy is the only sustainable mechanism for national preservation. Autonomy, unity equation, reserve power principle, authentic power sharing, genuine fiscal federalism, dual judiciary. Decentralization is not a path to disintegration. It is the constitutional necessity for preserving a pluralistic republic. You know, last several times you and me have been talking, decentralized system is stronger than a centralized system. In any what way somebody want to debate, I think we can debate that. Decentralization is the only answer to the mess India has. Next. Democratic path to constitutional reconstruction. There's a mandate, there's a judicial reallocation, resource transfer, capacity strengthening. We talked about this. This system has to work in a constitutional way. Next. So this is the final slide. Unity through diversity, governing maxim for the 21st century. National matters are governed nationally, state matters are governed by states, local matters are governed by local communities. A new federal settlement is a constitutional necessity to ensure India's survival as a democratic, pluralistic, and united republic. If India has to survive, it has to change from colonial government to United States of India, just like United States of America. Would it happen? How will it happen? When will it happen? I think are the questions to be raised, and we need to know the answers. Okay, who is qualified? You know, the Anandapur Sahib resolution, for which Sikhs were branded as anti-national. I think the Akali Party did one mistake. They listed federal things, but they didn't go into detail. And they should have done that at a central level in Delhi or somewhere central India, inviting all the others so they could not be blamed as anti-national. You know, this gave Indira Gandhi some mischievous powers, so she turned whole country against the Sikhs. Even she was able to recruit mercenaries among the Sikhs who attacked Golden Temple, and like Mr. Gill, who killed hundreds and thousands, I don't know how many people. So she was able to raise this argument and convince them that they were doing their national duty when she was using them as mercenaries. So this is one solution I think can save India, but how would it come? I think the only people who can bring it up are not the Sikhs. It has to come from like southern government, eastern states, southern states, this cockroach party, opposition. They need to put their head together and see if they have answer. This is the only answer to this centralized criminal government India has.
Interesting. Thanks, Dr. Grell. An observation as we go through this. There is a lot of assumptions in this, and I think one of the key assumptions for this to work is that the demographics of India would support it as a whole. And the reason I say that is because this assumes that all things are equal. Now, all things are not equal in India because, and of course you've referred to it several times during our discussion, is that the demographics of India are, 83% majority Hindu. And nature always moves towards equilibrium. It's just a fact of life. Nature will always move society, human beings, towards a state of equilibrium, towards stability. Now, in a secular nation, you can only really get stability, equilibrium, if, for example, each of the religions represented in that nation, generally speaking, are of relatively equal proportions, because then everybody has a roughly equal say. Nobody gets favoritism because there is no one majority particularly. But then a methodology like this whole constitution that you're proposing, would work because it could work as a secular constitution. So that's one state of equilibrium where you've got roughly equal numbers of different religions. The other state of equilibrium, to keep those scales in balance, that would also be a stable nation, is where everybody is one religion, a Hindu Rashtra, let's call it. So, 99% or 100% of the population are all Hindus. Then religion actually then gets taken out of that whole equation, and then they can just argue about constitutional, judicial rights, whatever. But then you've got this state of imbalance, of instability in between, which is where you get, essentially, India today. You've got 80-something% majority Hindus, but you've still got a sizable number of minorities, but they are so overwhelmingly outnumbered that the secular model works fine if everybody acts as good human beings. But it only takes one party, one generation that looks at the demographics and say, you know what, we're the majority. let's forget this secular nonsense. We want control because we're the majority. Essentially, what Hindutva and the BJP have been doing for the last 10 years. And that is where this whole secular constitutional stability just breaks down, because it needs to move to a state of stability. It's currently it is a very unstable state, as has been proved since 1947. It has only been held together essentially by the fact that the majority government up until 2014, generally speaking, have tried to retain some sort of level of secularity. But as soon as the BJP came in on this Hindutva ticket, they've torn up this whole secular idea and said, no, look, we're the majority, we want control. And everything that's happened since 2014 supports that move. So the reason I'm saying this is the direction of travel really in India, and we've often touched on this regularly. The direction of travel actually is we have now reached a point where those scales are now so imbalanced that we are looking for a state of equilibrium. We either go where India suddenly becomes a lot more equally divided demographically, which is impossible unless a lot of Muslims, Christians, Sikhs move into India. That's just not going to happen. Or it finds the other level of stability, which is where actually it just becomes a Hindu Rashtra. But then what happens to everybody else? In other words, we need to somehow move to a state of stability from this current state of instability. How that happens, I don't know. But only after that can happen, then we can, I think, talk about maybe this. Because I think India is so broken, handed over by the British as essentially a colonial nation. Then your proposal is great in theory, but I think it can only be brought in after there is some significant event that stabilises the demographics. Because I think this idea of secularism just does not work and cannot work in India as it stands today. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree. But, the discussion should start somewhere, right? We should start the discussion. How many people understand? I don't know. Of course, everything depends upon the quality and understanding of the people living there. And in the beginning, yes, there are some difficulties. But I give you a good example. Look now, the mayor of New York identifies his religion publicly that he's a Muslim. His mother is Indian. I don't know if he's from Muslim family or not. And a lot of the people who did not like him, they came up with a very, very different kind of a scenario against him. He's a communist. He's this, he's that. But look at the people of New York. People of New York elected him. New York is not a Muslim majority. In fact, there's a sizable, influential Jewish population. I'm sure they want more allegiance maybe towards Israel, but not all of them. Some of them still supported him. I think it takes time for maturing this thought process. Well, once it's functioning, I think people with the evidence do change. Would it change in one day? No. I think the whole India had to start a dialogue. What is the good alternative? Good alternative is not changing the education minister, because that is not going to solve the problem. The next one may be worse. They need to change the system. Like Ambedkar said, I will burn this constitution. I wish he had burned it. Why don't all the people who consider themselves to be Ambedkarites, why don't they join and do what he wanted, burn this constitution and start all over again? I think, let's say, for example, for the Sikhs, okay? For the Sikhs, I think number one choice is an independent Sikh state, which we call Khalistan. I don't think is any better option. But I'm still talking this. I'm talking in the concept of India. Let's say for some reason, the whole India, they came around that they were going to do this, and they reached Punjab. At that point, I think people of Punjab will have to listen to them carefully, ask questions. And no one person or party has the right to negotiate anything. If something like that come to that, then there should be referendum. Like a referendum can have two questions. Okay. We want number one Khalistan, or we want this United States of India. I'm talking theoretical discussion. It's today. It's not practical. It looks like people can laugh what they're talking about. But you know what? You should always be willing to discuss. Okay, let's say if we have a referendum, like my friends propose in Punjab, and question is only one. Question is, do you want Khalistan or no? Do you want Khalistan, right? If majority says no, then they stay where it is now. That's worse. So there's never wrong to consider second best option. I'm not proposing any support for this option for the Sikhs. I think our number one choice is a independent Sikh state. Let's say for some reason that is not happening, the whole India is ready, and they come with this proposal, then the intellectuals of Sikh community should openly discuss, talk, and maybe put before the people. I'm not sure if that time will ever come. But I think the best solution, from my experience living here for more than 50 years, I think this system has a lot of resilience and good things to accommodate everybody. Like religion, religion is not the purview of a federal government or the state government. Religion is free. In Tracy, it's a small town, we had one Gurdwara, and it's still being constructed, and then the other people decided they want to have another one. They have another one. You can have a third one. Nobody is stopping you. Yeah? You can have a mosque. You can have 20 churches. So religion is up to the people who practice that. It is not government's control. I think that is a necessity. If anything like this, what we're talking, ever to succeed, the people should be free to practice their religion. That's the number one, I think, requirement. If that is not even on the table, the whole discussion has no meaning.
Indeed, fascinating stuff. But we could talk for hours about this one. Unfortunately, there we must leave it. But of course, we'll be talking again with Dr. Grewal soon to continue our discussions. Dr. Grewal, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Thank you, Angus. Thank you for listening. I hope our audience have some maturity to listen and think. I think the whole purpose is for people to think what is possible. Okay, I think if somebody listening has access to this Indian opposition people or a cockroach party, please share this with them. They need to think of something like this instead of asking for resignation of one crook replacing with another crook. Thank you, Angus. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Indeed, wise words. But there we must leave it. And thank you for watching the Satluj TV podcast. We will see you next time.